I lost my older brother Danny to suicide in 2012. He was only 25 years old. Danny was a kind and loving big brother to me and my sister Kristen. He was a huge Chicago sports fan, and he was a master at chess. He was always thinking of others and reaching out to family members to see how they were doing. But unfortunately, Danny suffered from depression and schizophrenia. And as his sister, it was incredibly difficult to watch as these illnesses seemed to progressively take over his life. He continually sought help and displayed incredible perseverance and determination to get better, all the while continuing to be so loving to those around him. During the last 2 years of his life, I lived across the country, and Danny would regularly call me to ask me how I was doing, and he always sounded so upbeat in his phone calls and his emails to me. However, he eventually lost his battle with mental illness, and he passed away on March 30th, 2012. It wasn't until after his death, reading through all of his journal entries and his letters, that I realized just how hard he had been trying to help himself, and how alone he must have felt through it all. I felt absolutely heartbroken and devastated, but more than anything, I felt numb. We all knew he was struggling, but I couldn't believe that someone I loved so much and felt so close to could have been going through such a dark time, and that I hadn't been aware enough of the extent of it to be able to help him. This year, 88 Keys to Cure has chosen to support the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Along with the support of some amazing family and friends, some of the people I have met through AFSP have helped inspire me to share my story. Everyone who has struggled with their own mental health or who have watched a loved one struggle has their own story, and every story is different. This is just mine. But please remember, you never know what someone else may be going through.
Lauren's brother Danny is one of the millions of mental health victims each year, and with suicide rates rising around the world, 88 Keys to Cure is so honored to be supporting the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention this year. Established in 1987, AFSP strives to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide, as well as bring together a nationwide community empowered by research, education, and advocacy. Since its establishment, AFSP has expanded to create local chapters in all 50 states, educating and supporting millions of individuals all across the country. AFSP's immediate goal is Project 2025, a targeted initiative aimed to decrease suicide rates in the United States by 20% by the year 2025. 88 Keys to Cure wholeheartedly supports and aligns with AFSP's goals. As a not-for-profit organization comprised of high school students and whose mission is to use music to give back to the community, 88 Keys to Cure is dedicated to support AFSP by raising money and awareness for suicide and, more broadly, mental health.
Suicide rates have been steadily increasing for the last 2 decades. About 50,000 people die from suicide every year in the United States, and there are also more than 1 million suicide attempts each year in America. This means that suicide is responsible for about 1 death every 11 minutes. As one of the top 10 leading causes of death in the United States, suicide is becoming an increasingly large problem. And while the suicide rate as a whole has not increased during the COVID-19 pandemic, certain groups are still at higher risk than before. Increased unemployment rates have elevated suicide risk in certain groups, and the elderly and the young are associated with elevated suicide risk because of social disconnectedness and isolation.
Even with these statistics in mind, people find the discussions surrounding mental health and suicide difficult to bring up and seriously discuss for a variety of reasons, from stereotyping those who are contemplating suicide as looking for attention to the massive scope of the issue of suicide putting people off from attempting to approach the problem in the first place. There's much to be done with regard to helping people start that conversation about mental health. That being said, over recent years, many communities have made great strides in opening the door to giving people a platform to speak about these issues. Recently, suicide has been seen more closely for what it is, a matter of mental health that should be discussed more openly and respectfully, with the goal of providing solutions that help those who need it most. Helping fight against the stigma and the reluctance to talk about suicide, like most new things, involves pushing the boundaries of one's own comfort zone. taking the first step in getting the ball rolling with stopping to say something as small as, "How are you feeling?" to a friend in need could make a bigger difference in someone's life than you might ever think just 4 words could make.
Hi, my name is Dr. Dimple Patel, and I am from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, Illinois chapter. It wasn't until 2015 that I finally had the courage to share online why I created Team Patel, to also highlight my mom's story and to discuss the shame and stigma associated with mental health. I still remember very clearly how nervous I was to even post anything online because of what other people were going to say, how my family might be perceived, or even myself. But I knew at the end of the day that I needed to share my mom's story because things like that were never talked about in my community. It's often keep it within the family. You don't really talk about it, share your business with anybody else, let alone even go to therapy. And that was something that I was just struggling with for a long time, and finally decided that I needed to say something and have my voice heard on behalf of my mom. And it was also through therapy that I finally realized that mental health runs in the family. I experienced my first panic attack when I was 21 years old while attending DePaul University, and luckily I was able to go to the counseling services and seek support and really work through what I was going through. But that was completely different for my mom, and I like to say that we were both born in India, but raised in 2 different cultures. And because of being raised here, I felt more comfortable going to seek support, but I also kept it a secret for a very long time because I didn't want other people to know. But eventually it took me time, and I finally started sharing my story and struggles with anxiety, whereas my mom couldn't do that because she was afraid of what other people were going to say, and then also the cultural pressures and stigmas. So therefore I've made it my mission to speak out against the shame and stigma, and also provide education surrounding mental health, because it's often a topic that is not talked about enough, that we need more voices to be heard. The Illinois chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is here as a resource, and there are many ways to get involved. For more information, please visit www.afsp.org/Illinois. And thank you, 88 Keys to Cure, for your support and partnership.
Opening up about your own experiences will also help destigmatize mental health. Although it can be difficult to start a conversation, ultimately you will walk away with so much more support, encouragement, and treatment. A study conducted by the National Alliance for Mental Health found that individuals who shared their own thoughts and feelings ultimately left feeling more empowered. Oftentimes, initiating a discussion can be the hardest part. Setting an appropriate tone and sharing only what you're comfortable with can help tremendously.
Along with opening up and expressing your own feelings, it's crucial to check in on how others are feeling as well. Know the warning signs. If someone is talking about feeling like a burden or feeling hopeless, sleeping too little or too much, isolating themselves, behaving recklessly, or using more alcohol and drugs, they are at risk. If you know someone at risk, never keep it a secret. Seek professional support by calling the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. When talking with someone at risk, be direct and attentive. Don't be judgmental or act shocked. They will be less open to sharing their feelings with you. Take physical action by removing means of suicide like weapons and drugs. For more information on warning signs and courses of action, please click the link in the description below. Watching out for your friends and taking action can save lives.
As you can see, mental health needs to be talked about, and more importantly, normalized. You may feel ashamed to admit if you are struggling, but you should not feel shame. Mental health is equally as important as physical health, and the stigma associated with mental illness and suicide needs to end. If you see someone that you love may be struggling, please reach out to them, even if it may feel awkward to do so, because believe me, it makes a difference.
Once again, you can visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org for help or to help somebody else. You can also call 1-800-273-8255. If you're struggling, don't be afraid to reach out. Many of our problems have been accentuated in recent times, so just know that you aren't alone. You can donate to the cause at 88keystoCure.org, and all proceeds will go to supporting AFSP. Thank you.